Welcome to 6 chilling, dramatized Bigfoot encounters from Tennessee's wilds, based on true reports before 1980. From the eerie vanishing at Elk Creek to the screams of Keith Valley, these tales will grip you. Dim the lights, hit like and subscribe, and dive into the unknown. Story 1. The Vanishing at Elk Creek, 1977. My name is Dale Strickland, and in the summer of 1977, I was a school teacher from Tacoma, Washington, chasing solitude in the Olympic National Forest. I'd heard the stories about the Devil's Thicket near Elk Creek, whispers of strange howls, wood knocks, and massive footprints that didn't belong to any bear. As a kid, I devoured Bigfoot books, joking with friends that I'd find the creature someday. That July, I set out alone, my backpack stuffed with gear, my journal ready to capture the adventure. I didn't tell anyone my exact route, just that I was headed for the thicket, craving nature and maybe a glimpse of the mystery. I parked at the trailhead, snapped a photo by my tent, and hiked into the forest. The old-growth trees towered overhead, their branches choking out the sun, leaving the air cool and heavy with a scent of pine and damp earth. The first day was peaceful, just birds and the rush of Elk Creek. But that night, as I sat by my campfire, the forest changed. The usual night sounds, crickets, owls, went silent. I heard a low, mournful howl, deep and guttural, echoing through the trees. I told myself it was a coyote, but it didn't sound right. Then came the knocks, sharp, deliberate, like someone rapping a stick against a trunk, far off but too rhythmic for nature. I scribbled in my journal, trying to laugh it off, but my hands shook. The next night, it got worse. I was in my tent, the fire reduced to embers, when I heard breathing, slow, heavy, just outside the canvas. I froze, clutching my flashlight, too scared to move. It wasn't a bear. The steps were too measured, too upright, crunching the underbrush with a weight that made the ground tremble. I peeked through the tent flap, my beam catching nothing but shadows. Then I heard it walk away, on 2 legs, the strides long and steady. I wrote it down, my pen shaking. Something was outside the tent last night. Heard slow breathing. Thought it was a bear until it walked away, on 2 legs. The next morning, I found them. Impressions in the moss, massive, at least 17 inches long, with toes too human to be an animal's. They were spaced far apart, like whatever made them had a stride twice my own. I followed them, heart pounding, into the Devil's Thicket, where the trees grew so dense I could barely see the sky. That's when I felt it, eyes on me, heavy and unyielding. I turned, and there, maybe 50 yards away, stood a figure. It was tall, over 8 feet, covered in dark, matted hair that blended with the forest. Its face was shadowed, but its eyes glinted, small and piercing, locking onto mine. A foul stench hit me like wet fur and rot, and a low growl rumbled through the air. I don't remember running. I don't remember packing. I don't even remember how I got back to the trailhead. But I know I left my journal in the car, my last entry unfinished. Search teams found the car days later, locked, with no sign of me. They scoured the thicket, found those strange impressions, but no gear, no struggle, no trace. Some say I got lost, fell into a ravine, or froze in the night. But the locals, the ones who know the forest's secrets, say I found what I was looking for, and it found me. The Devil's Thicket keeps its secrets, and whatever watched me that night still roams those woods, waiting for the next fool to wander too deep. Story 2. The Screams of Keith Valley, 1977. I'm Tom Harper, and in the spring of 1977, I was visiting my in-laws in Cleveland, Tennessee, at their new house on Cora Drive, a quiet street backed by fields and woods. It was a clear night, almost a full moon, and the air was chilly, maybe 40 degrees. My wife, Lisa, and I were on the back porch, chatting with my brother-in-law, Jake, and his girlfriend, Sarah, catching up over beers. The neighborhood dogs were quiet, the only sound the hum of crickets, and the occasional car on Keith Valley Road. Then everything changed. It started with a scream. Not a coyote or a bobcat, but something raw, powerful, like it came from lungs bigger than any animal I'd ever heard. I grew up on a farm, knew every critter's call from here to Kentucky, but this was different. High-pitched yet deep, like a warning. It came from the woods across the field, maybe 300 yards away, where bulldozers had started clearing trees that day. We froze mid-sentence, staring into the dark. Sarah gripped Jake's arm, her eyes wide. Then another scream answered it, fainter, maybe half a mile down the road, like two things were calling to each other, their voices echoing through the night. The dogs in the neighborhood went crazy, barking and howling, their chains rattling. I stood, my heart racing, trying to peer past the moonlight into the trees. The air turned sour, a musky stench like wet fur and decay. Lisa whispered, "What the hell was that?" I didn't have an answer. Jake muttered something about a mule up the road, but I'd raised mules. They don't scream like that. The calls kept coming, back and forth, growing louder, closer, like whatever was out there was moving toward us. I grabbed a flashlight, but its beam barely cut through the shadows. Sarah begged us to go inside, but I couldn't tear my eyes from the woods. Then, the screaming stopped. The silence was worse, heavy, like the forest was holding its breath. We waited, barely breathing, until the dogs settled down. The next morning, we saw the bulldozers parked by the woods, the ground torn up, but no tracks, no signs of what we'd heard. My father-in-law laughed it off, said it was that mule, but Jake's face told me he didn't believe it. I heard later about truckers on the interstate near Cleveland, claiming they'd seen a massive figure eating a deer by the road. I don't know what was out there that night, but those screams weren't natural. They were a conversation, a warning, and I've never gone near those woods again. Story 3. The Shadow at the Fire, 1975. I'm Mark, and in the summer of 1975, I was 19, camping with 4 friends at the base of a mountain near La Follette, Tennessee, on an old roadbed off Highway 63. We'd been coming to these woods for years, building fires, telling stories, feeling like we owned the place. That night, the air was warm, the sky partly cloudy with just a sliver of moonlight. We built a roaring fire, snapping dead branches from the pines and oaks around us. A stray coon dog wandered into camp, skinny and shaking, so we fed it some peanut butter. It grabbed the jar and ran off, and we didn't think much of it. As the fire died down, 3 of us, me, Jake, and Tim, were leaning against an embankment, talking about life, while our buddy Dave slept in his tent. The dog came back, whimpering, its tail tucked, pressing against us like it was scared. That's when we heard it, a scream far off like a big cat, but it didn't sit right. We shrugged it off, blaming the mountain's echoes. Then the firelight dimmed, and a smell hit us, wet, musky, like an animal left out in the rain. The dog whined louder, staring into the dark beyond the fire's glow. I followed its gaze, and there it was, a shadow, massive, just outside the light. It stood upright, maybe 7 feet tall, its outline blurry but solid, like a man but too big, too wrong. Its eyes caught the firelight, glowing like twin embers, and it stared at us for what felt like forever, maybe 45 seconds. My skin crawled, my breath caught in my throat. Jake whispered, "What the hell is that?" But none of us moved. Then, like a gunshot, it turned and crashed through the woods, snapping branches and breaking trees like they were twigs. The sound was deafening, fading as it tore away into the night. We threw every branch we had on the fire, building it high, and sat there, wide-eyed, until dawn. The dog stayed close, trembling. At first light, we found broken branches and crushed underbrush where the thing had run, but no clear tracks in the rocky soil. Years later, in '78, I went back with Jake to a sand cave near a waterfall, not far from that spot. That same stench hit us again, and we found trees snapped 4 feet off the ground, like something massive had passed through. We followed the trail until it vanished, but the feeling of being watched never left. We still talk about that night, and every time, the chills come back. Whatever it wasn't human. And it's still out there, haunting those Tennessee hills. Story 4, The Primate of College Hill, 1979. I'm Camille Barnes, a 911 dispatcher in La Follette, Tennessee, and in the fall of 1979, something strange was stalking the College Hill neighborhood. I lived there myself, in a quiet community near the woods, where folks kept cats and dogs that roamed the yards. For weeks, calls had been flooding the dispatch line. People reporting a creature, tall and hairy, lurking in the shadows. They called it a chimpanzee, but chimps don't live in Tennessee, and they don't kill pets. The stories were wild. Cats gone missing, dogs torn apart, and one woman swore something rummaged through her basement, scattering clothes and boxes. One night, I was home alone, the kids asleep, when I heard a noise, a low, guttural grunt from the backyard. I checked the basement door. I'd left it open by mistake. The air smelled wrong, like sweat and rotting meat. I grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs, my heart pounding. The basement was a mess, boxes tipped over, clothes strewn across the floor. Something had been there. I shone the light outside, and that's when I saw it. Crouched near the edge of the woods. It was no chimpanzee. It stood maybe 7 feet tall, covered in dark, shaggy fur, its eyes glowing yellow in the beam. It didn't move, just stared, its breath heavy and rasping. I slammed the door and locked it, my hands shaking as I dialed the sheriff. By the time they arrived, it was gone, but the yard was torn up, deep gouges in the dirt like something heavy had stood there. The deputies said it was probably a bear, but I knew better. I'd heard the calls, listened to neighbors describe the same thing. A primate, upright, moving fast through the trees. A vet from UT came out, said it might be an escaped monkey, but monkeys don't kill like that. And they don't leave footprints the size of a man's, but twice as wide. The next night I heard it again, grunting, closer this time, and a sharp barking howl that woke the whole street. Dogs went wild, and I saw shadows moving between the houses. We set up floodlights, stayed inside, but the calls kept coming. Animal control searched the woods, found nothing but broken branches and a lingering stench. The zoo in Knoxville said they couldn't take a creature like that, and I heard whispers they'd euthanize it if caught. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a pet gone wild. It was something older, something that belonged to the woods, and it was angry we were there. Story 5, The Hunter's Terror on Short Mountain, 1979. I'm Randy Hutchings, and in the fall of 1979, I was hunting on Short Mountain in Cannon County, Tennessee, with my friend Carl. The forest was thick, a tangle of pines and briars that took us 2 hours to hike through from the truck. We were in tree stands, waiting for deer, the air crisp and the woods alive with rustling leaves. As the sun dipped low, we heard something moving, too loud for a deer, crashing through the brush about 50 yards away. I signaled Carl, thinking maybe a bear, but the noise was wrong, too heavy, too deliberate. Then we saw it. Across an old logging trail, the only clear patch in the forest, a creature stepped out. It was massive, 7 feet tall, covered in dark matted hair, walking upright like a man but moving with the strength no human could match. Its arms were long, swinging as it crossed the trail in a few strides. I wanted to shout, to grab my rifle, but I was frozen, my breath caught in my throat. Carl's eyes were wide, his hands gripping his stand. The thing paused, its head turning slightly, like it sensed us. A foul smell hit us, like wet dog and rotting leaves, and then it bolted, tearing through the forest with a speed that snapped branches and shook the ground. We stayed in our stands until dark, too scared to climb down. By the time we reached the ground, it was too dim to find tracks, but the undergrowth was crushed where it had run. I went back a few days later and talked to the landowner, an old farmer named Ellis. He didn't laugh, said a woman had seen it too, sitting in her broken-down car near the mountain, watching it cross the road. He'd found broken trees and strange marks himself over the years. We searched the trail again, found a few deep impressions in the mud, too big for any man, but no clear prints. That thing knew we were there, and it didn't want us. I still hunt, but not on Short Mountain. Whatever's out there owns that place, and I'm not going back to find out what it wants. Story 6. The Road Crossing Near Harriman, 1979. I'm Linda Carter, and in the summer of 1979, I was driving with my 9-year-old son, Tommy, on Highway 61 near Harriman, Tennessee. It was a bright afternoon, around 3:45 p.m., and we were coming back from the vet, talking about our dog in the back seat. The road was quiet, cutting through brush and dense forest near the Little Emery River. I was focused on the road when Tommy shouted, "Mom, look!" I slammed on the brakes, my heart jumping as I saw it. 10 car lengths ahead, a creature stepped out of the forest. It was huge, at least 8 feet tall, covered in black, shaggy fur, walking upright across the 2-lane road in 3 quick strides. Its arms were long, swinging like pendulums, and its head turned, locking eyes with us. They were dark, deep-set, and human-like, but wrong, like they saw right through me. It didn't run, just walked into the brush on the other side, vanishing into the trees. Tommy was shaking, saying, "What was that?" I didn't have an answer. I drove home, my hands gripping the wheel, checking the rearview mirror like it might follow us. A week later, I went back to the spot with Tommy, needing to know if it was real. The grass by the road was trampled, with deep, bare footprints, too big for a man, with toes clear as day. Nearby, we found a patch of flattened grass, like something heavy had lain there, watching. The brush leading into the forest was broken, a trail of snapped twigs disappearing into the dark. I'd read online about kids finding similar prints in the area earlier that year, and the stories started to add up. Whatever crossed that road wasn't a bear or a man. It was something else, something that knew we saw it, and I can't shake the feeling it's still out there, waiting by the river. Thanks for joining these eerie Bigfoot tales from Tennessee. Like and subscribe to support more creepy encounters.